So Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 has been out for a month now. Let's take a look at the good and the bad things. I'm going to start with the bad things, then show some beautiful, nice features of the sim. Because you know, if you leave the bad things to the end, those are the things that will stay in memory. And to be fair, the new Flight Sim 2024 is absolutely amazing, but there is always room for improvement, so let's just start. And I'm not going to start to talk about the launch day. There is a high chance that you have experienced the same issue as maybe 90% of the flight simmers. This loading screen that went for hours and hours without advancing further and further. And because of that, I will start focusing on areas like the user experience, because in my personal opinion, this is a really important area and this can cause the user to even stop using that piece of software if the user experience is very, very bad. Anyway, we are in the Flight Sim 2020 and I have set up my side stick POV buttons to a couple of things. The important things here are these: previous pilot position, next pilot position, previous instrument view, and next instrument view, which are down, up, left, and right. Remember that. We are now in the cockpit, and if I start using these up and down buttons, you can see I can switch between these positions, previous and next pilot positions, until I will eventually end up in this view, which is the instrument view. I had two buttons to switch between these instrument views, left and right. And if I do that, like this, as you can see, I can switch between all the views. Why is that important, you might ask? Well, this is the easiest way to set up your custom views, especially inside of the cockpit. And if you are using the Phoenix family airplanes, you can even use this to set up your cabin or window views, because these views are defined under instrument views, like you see here. So I saved this view, for example, to be my custom view 0, and this one to be my custom view 2, and maybe this one to be my custom view number 8, and so on and so forth. This is all nice and fine, and now let's switch to the new Flight Sim 2024. So here we are in the controller settings of 2024. I have selected my side stick, and as you can see, previous and next pilot positions to the side stick POV down and up buttons, and next and previous instrument view to the POV left and right buttons. Exactly like in the 2020 sim. Let's go inside the cockpit and test that out. Again in the cockpit, now I am using these buttons up and down to switch between the previous and next pilot position. Alright, this works. And you would say, okay, this might be the instrument view, but if I go to this view and press the left and right POV buttons on my side stick, these are the quick view left and right buttons. So how do I access the instrument view? Well, unfortunately, you need to set up a button for that. You know the experience we all had with the new controller settings. You need to set up at least one toggle instrument view button. I have set them all up, but if you set one up, this is enough. Let's try that out. Now I will press the button to toggle instrument view 1. There it is, instrument view 1. And now if I press left and right, I can switch between the instrument views, as you can see. So this behavior, in my opinion, got worse than before. Why did they remove that feature? I don't know. Next topic we are focusing on are world map filters, and again starting with the Sim 2020. If we go now to the world map filters like this, for example, I never use heliports, I never fly helicopters, I always want to turn them off. And let's see, let's turn that off as well. Let's actually turn everything off except the hard surface runways, which are airports. Now if you set this up and restart the sim, they will be back to default, which is like this. So is this behavior now finally fixed in the Flight Sim 2024? Let's take a look. Alright, Flight Sim 2024, let's take a look. The world map filters are now in this bottom right corner right here, this button. And if I remove everything that I don't need, as you can see, these are unchecked. Let's keep the hard surface runways checked. And let's start at Princess Juliana Airport. So here we are, and let's now go back to the menu, end flight, and yes. And I can tell you right now, it got even worse. Because, watch this, if I now open the world map filters, they are already reset. I don't even have to restart the sim for them to be reset to default. My first thought on this was, okay, I thought almost everything is now streamed through the cloud. I mean, sceneries, airports, even the controller settings are synchronized. How hard can it be to synchronize these filters? I mean, they don't even have to synchronize them to the cloud. They are stored locally in a file. And if you are a long-term flight simmer, you might even know that. Anyway, let's move on. Back again in 2020, I have set up my insert key on the keyboard to be the toggle drone button. So here I am. Let's use that button. If I now press this button once, as you can see, we can switch to the drone camera and I can move around like I wish. Alright, this is all good and fine. And let's click the button again. Alright, if I now hold the key, nothing happens. It only switches to the view once and that's it. Same, let's go back. Nothing's happening. Let me show you how this behavior is in 2024. So in 2024, I have set up the same button to toggle the drone view. Now watch what happens if I press the button once. Did you see that? This flickering, it switches to the drone mode and sometimes switches back to the cockpit view. It's not like that all the time, but if you press the button maybe a couple of milliseconds too long, this will get you into this. And if you press and hold down the button, take a look at this. This is awful. I have already removed my finger and it's still doing it. Now you might say your keyboard is broken, just get a new keyboard, but take a look at this. I set up the button 6 on my throttle quadrant to toggle the drone, and let's take a look at that. Maybe my keyboard is really broken. Let me click on that button. Same behavior, and it's even worse. If I now press the button and hold it down, same behavior. This is clearly not the hardware. So next item on the list is the drone camera again. Let me just go and explore this beautiful island. And let's stop right here. Okay, just remember this position. Now if I go to the settings and set up some stuff, maybe some new controls or anything, and then go back, you are suddenly in the cockpit view. Why? I don't know. And another thing with the drone camera, let's get back to our airplane like this. And now let me switch to the cockpit view again and to the walk around mode. Let's go back to the cockpit again. Here we are. And now let's go to the drone camera again. Well, guess what? It is reset. It didn't save the previous position we were in, which was around this area right here. It just reset the drone position. Well, isn't that an amazing user experience? For this next one, we are going on a hiking mission. We just landed our Cessna 172 in this field. It was a rough landing though. Anyway, let's go hike all the way up to the mountain. I'm gonna fast forward to show you what the actual problem is. So I guess this is enough, and let's take a look at where we are right now. Very high up. Now we have parked the airplane somewhere in this field, like I told you before. Actually, let's take a picture of that beautiful view. Perfect. Now to the actual problem. As you can see, we are now very far away from the airplane. If you now for some reason press the back to the cockpit button accidentally, watch what happens. Now I'm back in the cockpit. All right. You might say, okay, well, I can press the button again and then I will be returning back to my previous position, right? Well, you guessed wrong. We are all the way back at the airplane again. So the position of the character, the last known position, is not saved, which might make you very angry and frustrated if you walked for almost half an hour like I did. The next thing that is annoying me too is the electronic flight bag, and as you can see, we are flying around. The electronic flight bag is now opened, and I like it to be horizontal orientation, and I like my weight units to be kilograms, volume in liters, and temperature in degrees Celsius. Now the problem is, if you now set this up, there is no save button, which will make you assume that these settings are synchronized in the cloud maybe, or in a local file, whatever, but they are not. As soon as you restart the sim, these settings are back to default again. Let me show you that. So I ended the flight, and this is now the electronic flight bag in the main menu or in the world map, doesn't really matter. Let's go back to the main menu. Of course, you cannot use it here, so I'm gonna just quit to desktop and show you what happens if I restart the sim. I'm going to fast forward, obviously. Great, back in the sim. Now let's open up the electronic flight bag. And as you can see, it is in this format. And if we go back to the settings, almost everything is back to default. It's vertical again. The weight units are pounds. Volume is still gallons US, and temperature, at least the temperature, is saved. It shouldn't be a problem to save it in a local file. Now let's take a look at the career mode. In 2020 I did not fly helicopters, and in 2024 there is a reason for me to at least start my training for helicopter flights. We have tons of helipads all over the world, and I wanted to start the training. There's training missions on the left side, of course, and you can take the exam, but I didn't want to take the exam before even knowing how to control a helicopter. So I started the first training session, and for some reason this mission or this training session is never ever going to end successfully. And take a look at what happens. So the instructor tells me to take a look at different instruments. He shows me the rudder pedals, the side stick, and some other stuff. And as soon as he instructs you to take a look at this big monitor, this big display that we have, you will be prompted to hit Control E to start the engines. And now watch what happens when I do that.
Wait, we didn't finish our ground training yet. Great. Now you see the electronic pilot monitor running. I understand you want to fly, but believe me, you need to know some theory first. Let's start over again.
Yeah, well, you start the instruments by pressing Control E. Then he suddenly tells you, hey, you have to wait until we finish our training. Then what happens? You will start all over again. So I tried this once, twice, thrice, 4 times, and then I just gave up and told myself, okay man, you are not gonna fly helicopters ever. So I'm going to stick with general aviation and mainly airliners, I guess. So all of these things that I mentioned are really small bugs that might be fixed in the future. Of course, there are much more critical bugs like crashed desktops, stutterings, bad textures or textures that take forever to load in, and other things and bugs that we might discover in the future. But there are also a lot of beautiful and nice things in the new Flight Sim 2024, so let's just take a moment to appreciate all those things, like the career mode in general, career missions, career certifications, because you don't have the money to do it in real life, world photographer, challenge leagues, although they are broken right now, customizing your identity if you have an identity crisis, tons of default aircraft, specifically airliners, saving the day by identifying cracks the mechanic has missed, the 24-hour weather because it's raining right now and you miss the sun, the absolutely amazing cloud layers because you feel like Son Goku and like cloud surfing, close to reality solar eclipses because you can now finally look at the sun without going blind, this epic loading screen, going on a hike without even leaving the room, living the 4 seasons without listening to Vivaldi, visible farting airplanes in cold weather, flying low ignoring the ground effect, getting lost in the Amazonas and never finding your way out, either by day or by night pretending to play Slenderman, visiting your hometown Bonn, which is the former capital of Germany and is now broke as fuck. While doing that, visiting Königswinter, which literally translates to King's Winter, and where all the people look like this. Flying over Drachenfels, which translates to Dragon's Rock, where King Joffrey used to live until the dragons wiped this place out. And finally, making this video for you guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, subscribe, activate the bell, and as always, see you in the next one.